Candace Owens just slammed Israel First Zionists and the FBI for misleading and manipulating Americans. And in this clip, she gets into why they're still trying to get people to denounce any critics of Israel or the FBI over pressing political issues, and Tucker Carlson doing everything but that and going directly to bat for Candace Owens. So let's watch. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Christian Zionism is heretical. I don't know what they are protecting, but if you don't see that it has gone masked down, the people who won't even speak about Bibi Netanyahu's crimes against humanity, he's being tried for crimes against humanity, all somehow have the energy to come for Candace Owens, right? To come for Candace Owens and to try to paint her as a crazy person because she had a dream. And I'm sticking with the dream. I'm sticking with the dream. Charlie was betrayed. He continues to be betrayed every single day, including by these same Christian Zionists that he platformed throughout his entire career, who apparently don't have a single question about any of the BS that we've heard. I also want to say to you guys, I know that I promised you we would discuss the Egyptian planes. What we have discovered is actually so big that I had to go through the proper channels to get this information to government first. And that was very tricky because I don't know who we can trust in government, right? It kind of feels like the government is implicated in trying to stop us from getting the truth about what happened on that day. So I had to be very careful, and I had to kind of back wheel and deal and try to figure out who the good guys were. And long story short, we're pausing that until tomorrow because I wanted to give some people a little bit more time on that. So I will have that for you tomorrow. Another element of this, by the way, as we talk about the I don't know, what is very clearly a psychological operation. They all have the same talking points. They're all using different emotionally manipulative tactics. So, oh, you can't question this because, like, you know, he has a widow and kids and it would be so harmful to try to figure out who killed him. Just like on its face, that is such a nonsense. First and foremost, whenever there is a murder, full stop, the first people that you should be questioning is there a financial incentive? Is there a financial incentive? Yes, this is an $80 million company. Did people close to him? Do you have friends that were jealous? Was he in any fights? This is such a normal quest. It is completely normal. If anybody watch IDTV, come on, what are we talking about, right? This is such a normal thing to consider.
Especially when some of those people close to Charlie Kirk made up provable lies about him, like Josh Hammer, not only saying that, you know, he was a complete rigid Zionist to the end, despite being privy to the fact that he said, I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause 48 hours before his death, continued to lie about him, continued to try to sell his book off of his murder. And yeah, financial incentives, that would be normal to look into, right? But when it comes to the Zionists, it really comes down to projecting what the people that they support in politics are most guilty of Netanyahu. They'll say, hey, you know, there's so much anti-Semitism in America and there's a new Holocaust around the corner. And unless we change our course, we're going to go headlong into a new Holocaust. But you double down on the atrocities of Netanyahu and support that and justify it and just look the other way or ignore it when children are being pulled up from that rubble. That is the Zionist reasoning. That is what they are guilty of. It's always projection. They always project unto you the hypothetical situation that you'll do something that those who they support, the criminal U.S. and Israeli government, have actually done to kill multitudes.
And they are trying to pretend that that natural incursion is just not palatable right now. We just need you guys to buy a T-shirt. We need you to buy a Freedom T-shirt and just keep this organization going, even though it seems to have a lot of very questionable characters involved. It's a bit ridiculous. I'm very awake to, and I think you guys are as well, to these psychological tactics. And I've often discussed how in America, it is the media that intentionally fosters this sort of a culture. And in some regard, it's a Judas culture, right? There is a psychology that has manifested where people are encouraged to sell out their friends and even their family members in order to spare or advance themselves or to advance their careers.
Or to advance a certain particular foreign regime. I'll give you 3 answers as to which that is. You don't even need 3. It's just Israel, to prioritize Israel above all the rest, sell people out, sell political bedfellows out, only raise a scene about this when someone turns against that question. That's what's at the heart of this MAGA GOP civil war, whatever you want to call it. it's just turning on the issue of Israel from Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, are being more outspoken about that issue more now than ever, when it's utterly indefensible from the Zionist perspective to defend these atrocities anymore. If Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson would have, been more outspoken about any other issue that they might have, adjusted to, it wouldn't have caused this struggle. It is a struggle over Israel and its ramifications, not only in terms of foreign policy, but also domestic policy. It's Israel first. It's Israel first desperation. When you can't defend it, you just yell blood libel. That's what Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and, all these rigid Zionists are doing right now.
That's today's version, in my view, of the 30 pieces of silver, right? That's what you see playing out on the world stage when someone tries to struggle session a person into making a statement against one of their friends. Candace, you're better than Kanye. You have your whole life ahead of you. You'll have more of a future if you just say this one thing. Call him Adolf Hitler. Call him an anti-Semite. No, thank you. I said no. Charlie, Candace is heading into a direction that's only going to hinder you. We demand as donors that you do not let her speak at AmFest. She's just a bad person. You got to make a statement against her. Charlie said no. Megyn Kelly, it's your career or it's Tucker Carlson. You decide, right? I'm your friend. I just want to help you. Tucker Carlson, he's really going a bad way. She said no.
Good for her, by the way. I'm no fan of her perspective on Israel. She still calls herself a Zionist, but she at least stood in front of her crowd and told the truth. Told the truth about Ben Shapiro's lies as Shapiro tried to manipulate her into denouncing Candace Owens based on lies, based on saying that Candace Owens had blamed Erica Kirk for Charlie Kirk's murder, something she obviously didn't do. That was exposed, and Ben should be smarter than to lay down something so provably false. But thankfully, Megyn exposed that. She didn't say, Ben Shapiro's a liar. I'd love for her to say that because we all recognize that is true. But at the same time, she did stand up and say that wasn't true. So good for her in that regard.
This is how it goes. It just made me so happy yesterday. Totally just was hyped. Especially, I think we all feel this way, when you see this psychology employed and someone just completely annihilates it immediately. And Tucker did just that yesterday, or at least yesterday is when the clip went live. He completely embarrassed this English reporter who was effectively playing this game with him, asking Tucker to condemn me live on his show.
Of course.
Take a
listen. That's what they always do.
To this awesome clip.
Your good friend Candace Owens has been putting out some pretty wacko stuff, I would say, would be my opinion on the death of Charlie. It's not helpful, is it, that, at that time of an incredible national upheaval, and obviously personal and familial family tragedy, to have someone like that picking apart the argument and suggesting that there are darker forces at play here that the US government have a hand in covering up. Can you see why people get upset by that and would like you perhaps to sort of distance yourself from that sort of thing?
Pretty funny. So am I going to attack Candace Owens because you
I'm not asking you to attack her.
I'm not going to do that here.
I love that he just laughs at this. And by the way, I don't think it's particularly helpful to swallow the FBI story wholesale. No matter what your perspective is on this murder, just swallowing the FBI story as if there's no other, angles to this that haven't been uncovered, that the FBI wasn't exactly forthcoming about, including the Zionist donor class that, struggled to try to keep Charlie towing the line and the Israel First doctrine, despite the fact that he wasn't doing that. And we're just supposed to just swallow this narrative wholesale. No, I don't think that's helpful. That's what I think.
Probably not going to do that. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt as a foreigner of not understanding our politics, but the whole ritual of, this person said something I don't like. In order to be a good person, you must denounce this person. Obviously, I would die before I played along with that.
Right on.
I don't know anyone who's saying that who was the moral authority to compel me. I don't know anyone saying that it was any moral authority at all. And I would say broadly, not about Candace, whom I love, but about all people, getting to the truth is the most important thing. I've devoted my life to it. I haven't always done a very good job at all, but it still remains to this day my animating motive. I want to know what the truth is. Again, I don't always get there. I usually don't get there, but I want to be the guy who cares what's true. A. B, if you're telling me that because the U.S. government or some law enforcement agency issues a statement that doesn't even make sense, that I'm required somehow morally to accept that and not ask any questions, like, can you hear yourself? I mean, what are you saying?
Oh man, there's so many great things in that response. Where do I start? So first off, he wanted him to denounce Candace Owens. That's what this journalist was going for, right? So not only did Tucker Carlson specifically say the opposite of what this journalist wanted, he said, whom I love, comma, saying I love Candace Owens, so I'm not going to denounce her as you wish. He laid out that she's searching for the truth and she's earnest about it. And I think she's earnest about it. I don't agree with everything in regard to all the angles she's uncovered or it being necessarily a military operation and being sure of that. You know, at times being sure that Lance Twigg was involved, being sure that also Turning Point betrayed Charlie or had some involvement. All three of those things, to me, that doesn't really make sense to me. But that said, it's immaterial. She's searching for truth the way she sees it, and we should search for truth the way we see it because the FBI doesn't exactly do that. The FBI's led us astray. The entrapment plots, Jan 6, killing women and children at Ruby Ridge and Waco, ruining the life of Richard Jewell in the 96 Olympics, you know, COINTELPRO wiretapping dissidents trying to get Martin Luther King to kill himself, murdering Fred Hampton with the help of Chicago police. This is what the FBI is guilty for. It can't be reformed. It can't be steered in a direction that's better than it is, especially under the stewardship of Kash Patel, of all people. It must be abolished.
It's just perfection. It's just literal perfection. What are you doing? Stop trying to gaslight us. You are a part of exactly what we need to defeat. You are a part of the establishment, this organ of people who use psychological tactics to try to make us think we are crazy for not accepting something that just makes no rational sense. So it's, oh, this is just a bad time, and this is a wacko jacko. Everybody's crazy when you start questioning the feds. Suddenly they want to call you crazy. And Tucker just annihilates it instantly. He's like, get out of here. I don't know where you're from. Okay, I assume you're a foreigner and you think that this is how things work in America.
I love that underhanded swipe, too. That was a perfect underhanded swipe toward him. I'm so glad he went on that show, man. That was a really good retort. That's how to handle any struggle session type of thing like this. Exactly what Tucker did. You know, retort 101.
And we're just going to accept the Fed slop because that's what we should do as polite citizens. No, get out of here. We want to know who killed Charlie Kirk because this story seems pretty dark. It seems pretty deep. And everyone that should be using their platforms to try to get to the bottom of what happened to him and asking similar questions is instead calling out Candace Owens and waiting for her to make a mistake so they can try to delegitimize every effort that she is making to get to the bottom of this thing. It just reeks. It reeks to high heaven. And so I absolutely adore Tucker for that. I adore him for just standing up for me. And obviously he's seasoned, so he sees right through it in the same way that I do. But that is the way forward. That is the way forward when people are trying this on you, trying to manipulate you using Bible verses like Allie did after she just ceded so much, essentially fundamentally called me a liar in her own way about various things, is now pretending she's like an injured bird because I responded, and I responded nicely, but suddenly trying to tell you it's not biblical for you to pry into what's happened to the Charlie Kirk assassination case. This is just not biblical.
Yeah, the Bible, prohibits you for searching for the truth regarding your friend's death. That's so absurd. And no matter times the Zionists hurl out Genesis 12:3 at us, it's not going to make that more justify the modern state of Israel, which was a globalist plot to redistribute land and do it on the backs of Palestinians who lost that land due to this global scheme supported by the U.S. and UN. Sorry, Genesis 12:3 doesn't justify that. It was speaking to an agreement with Abram before he even became Abraham and before there is even a classical kingdom of Israel, let alone the future modern state of Israel, which is a perversion and a genocidal regime that's supported and bankrolled by my criminal government that's complicit.
Yeah, it's a complete nonsense. She did a video yesterday. I don't get dreams like Candace. We see what you're doing. It's petty. Now you're being petty Betty. If you want to get involved and look in this case, do it. If you don't, step aside. You are not required to respond to Candace Owens' content. That's actually not a requirement. You can keep doing your content, telling people that what you do is biblical while you ignore the glaring obvious crimes of Israel, which you refuse to ever denounce your support for. You know what I'm not doing? I'm not killing tens of thousands of children in Palestine and trying to legitimize it to my audience by telling them that somehow this is what God wants because it's right here in the Bible. I don't know. That's so. I'm going to be done addressing her, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and also, I'm with Tim Pool here. Don't always agree with him, but right here he says it best. Candace Owens' drama is probably the most demoralizing stuff ever. It's true soap opera drama that isn't helping anyone. It's not advancing policy goals. It's just shock content retardation. And to be clear, he's talking about the people that say, oh, gasp, did you see that Candace said this in her investigation? Did you see that she uncovered this angle? And to be fair, you know, Candace is open season. She's a public official. You can say whatever you want to criticize her. But it's backfiring spectacularly, especially on the Zionists that try to double down on this stuff. So I think he's right on that.
These are all manipulative tactics, some of them more evil than others, but that's what's happening right now. And we have to just stay focused on solving what happened to Charlie Kirk. And the feds are not helping, maybe because Kash Patel is busy crying over his girlfriend. He really needs to believe that she likes him for him. I don't believe that. I actually don't accept that Alex Wilkins, who comes from a family of Freemasons and who's got a spotty background, nobody knows what she was doing in Switzerland, just loves him for him and was in the right place at the right time. By the way, I should mention Alexis Wilkins is her name, Alexis Wilkins. She's also a member of the Calvary Chapel Church in California, Chino Hills. Also, the Babylon Bee guy, I can't think of his name right now, is also involved in the Calvary Chapel. We got to look into this Calvary Chapel thing. It's getting interesting.
Is she talking about Joel Berry or Seth Dillon when she says the Babylon Bee guy? That connection I'm not sure of. I've followed most angles of this story, and that one doesn't really strike me. You know, what can you say, though? The whole Kash Patel thing and the honeypot thing, and him going after Elijah Schaffer for daring to suggest that is just absurd. And a lot of people have memed on this, thankfully so. It's caused kind of like a memeing uproar of people on Twitter kind of going viral saying that Alexa's a honeypot. Like, even if you don't think that, saying that to draw the ire of the FBI, you know, I don't want to entrap anyone, but I'm just saying if like millions of people are doing that, what does that say? The FBI has limited resources. Are they going to sue all of us? Every comedian, every influencer, every pundit saying that? I don't think they have the means, and I'm glad people are resisting that nonsense by making this, you know, the sad spectacle that it is, that the FBI is doing this while covering up the Epstein files and trying to do whatever they can to block any kind of alternative angles that Joe Kent presented for the Charlie Kirk assassination involving potential foreign angles, something that they shut down completely. Even when it came from this administration, they're locked in. They're not moving. They've decided on cover-up.
Just is getting interesting. Irrespective of that, the lawsuit, filing a lawsuit to convince yourself and backing your life partner as she files a lawsuit because somebody made a joke, because that's what Elijah Schaffer's lawsuit is about. It's a joke. And in the lawsuit, they talk about his anti-Israel rhetoric. Who cares? He doesn't go there. He can speak trash about Israel if he wants to. In fact, I encourage him to do that.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to speak trash about Israel, that's for sure. And Candace is right to call that pathetic. That's what it is. Suing Elijah Schaffer is truly pathetic. Just absurd. Even if you can construe it as libel or slander, it's just really stupid, especially when you're a public figure targeting citizens for saying this. You know, you don't even own your own reputation. So when someone says something that's their opinion about you, it's free speech. I'm sorry. And people will say, oh, you're crazy, you don't believe in slander or libel cases. I certainly don't when it comes to public figures who you're allowed to criticize. You're allowed to say that if that's your viewpoint. If it's provably false, that's fine. But again, you don't own your reputation. So it's not even an attack against you. Your reputation is the product of what other people think about you, and that's what they're attacking, not you. They haven't committed violence toward you, Kash. So anyone you try to sue, it just makes you look like the supervillain that you actually are, by the way, for covering up a child sex trafficking ring. And if you watch this full clip, which I recommend that you guys do watch it, she gets into how Tim Dillon responded to this, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love Tim Dillon so much. So in the original clip, if you click on it, it's in the description. You can see him playing Alexa's music video, and his response to it's priceless. That's all I'll say. But definitely see it. Protect Tim Dillon at all costs, and protect Elijah Schaffer and Candace Owens at all costs too. But what do you guys think? You know, have we been lied to enough? You know, are the tactics of the Zionists being sussed out to such an extent that it's easy to destroy them now? Why do they never use actual defensible arguments anymore about the situation at hand? Why don't they just resort to anti-Semitism and Jew hater and Holocaust around the corner and blood libel? Why? Is it just because the arguments aren't on their side? And even if they are, that strategy's backfiring too. So what is the next pivot of the Zionists? Are they going to be able to sustain this propaganda campaign against Americans that are noticing? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Candace Owens. Thank you for this awesome segment, Candace. And if you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button down below. If you do that, it'll help the channel, help me immensely, and I really appreciate that. And in return for that, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to watch those members-only videos right away if you do that. And if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below, plug in your email, I'll send that right to you in PDF form, free of charge, no obligation, just because I think you're cool. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.
It's a different time now, and that sort of, we're going to tell you what to think and you're going to like it, is not like, people aren't buying it anymore.
In one day, you go
Right.
from being like our favorite person who we champion, who we put billboards up on, to you are the most vicious, evil human being in the world. As soon as you're not on board with Israel and Israel's wars.
I describe it very much. It is a psychological operation that is meant to break you.
The pro-Israel Zionists have just lost their influence over the American people. It's just undeniable. That hasn't played out in politics yet, but it is playing out in the culture. And that's what Dave Smith and Candace Owens got together to talk about in this clip. What does that have to do with where politics is headed? What does it have to do with Trump and this effort to cancel Tucker Carlson? Let's get right into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And so anyway, as Mark Levin is openly calling for you and Tucker's cancellation, and Dinesh D'Souza, people like this are openly calling, it is just funny because you're like, objectively right now, you and Tucker are the two biggest conservative political commentators. This is just undeniable. And so their plan right now is, we want to cancel number one and number two. This is just like, how do you even get away with doing that when the people have already told you they're on their side, not yours?
Right.
What's it been like for you to just kind of watch this?
Well, yesterday was a fantastic day. I mean, to get the email from Podscribe, #1 podcast in the world, and I don't. Of course, I am humbled by it, truly, because the audience is the reason. Like, this truly was a free market response. And to go back and find the people who worked day in and day out to ruin my life. It wasn't like they just wanted me gone from the Daily Wire, which they got and they celebrated and effectively danced on my grave. It wasn't, they then were trying to get my speaking events canceled. They were the ones that put pressure on Charlie not to let me speak. And I said to him, dude, I got enough going on. Like, I don't want you to also just by proxy catch a flame because they want to cancel me. They got me banned from Australia. I had to cancel a tour, right? Simply because I didn't agree with Israel. That you would think that I harmed somebody by having a different opinion. And I think the reason why yesterday was such a win was precisely because they worked so hard and tried to destroy me, and we survived. That's where their true hatred and vitriol is coming from, is the fact that we survived a virtual assassination attempt, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true about this Zionist crowd that's trying to take out people like Candace Owens, at least figuratively, in terms of reducing her influence, but it's not going to work. And we celebrated us dissidents that, agreed with Candace on Israel and other related issues, and, skewering the Trump administration for launching a war versus Iran, covering up the Epstein files. And now, you know, we have this deep state that's clearly still treacherous. It hasn't been steered in a better direction. It's because Americans were won over to those views that they favored Candace Owens over Ben Shapiro. And Dave's point is striking here, too, is that literally these Zionists, with waning influence, getting less and less of it over time, who listens to Mark Levin anymore? And Ben Shapiro's influence is getting lower and lower in comparison to these giants. They are trying to cancel number one and number two, but arguably number three as well, Nick Fuentes. He might be, you know, a top 5 overall influencer on the right too. You know, he hasn't had as long of a track record maybe as like Steven Crowder or other people that might be in that conversation. But at the same time, man, he is skyrocketed. He's arrived. They have to deal with him whether they like to or not, or whether they want to harangue Tucker Carlson for daring to talk to him.
It's like we shouldn't have survived it, but given everything they did, and even the element of how they wanted me to be fired, like the element of surprise for Tucker to be fired. He's doing a show on a Tuesday, suddenly on a Wednesday, he doesn't get to say goodbye to his audiences. I really do believe even that was a part of their like sadistic effort to be like, you are no more. And so, yeah, it feels good. And I'm really happy to say all I did was commit to the truth, and I didn't allow peer pressure to come to something that's actually evil. Like, we're not even, it's like, do you agree that Palestinians should be genocided? No. Okay, well then you're going to be canceled. You're never going to be on a Republican stage ever again. Okay, bye. I'll just do my own show.
That's why people appreciate her courage. Literally what started that whole firestorm with the Daily Wire is her tweeting that genocide is wrong no matter who does it. That was her crime. She could have switched her issue on her opinion on any other issue. And this right-wing Zionist-leaning faction of Make America Great Again, but let's just be real, let's just make Israel great again. That's what their slogan really should be. She could have switched her opinion on any other topic and they wouldn't treat her this way. It's because that's their pet project, the Greater Israel Project. Israel first. Let's funnel as much money as we can down into the coffers of Netanyahu while he draws us into wars, takes our wealth while we're $38 trillion in debt, while we have inflation and raising prices that Americans can't avoid seeing whenever they go to the grocery store. Yeah, that's their project. That's all they seem to care about.
Okay, you're not going to be allowed to speak at the CPAC or the RNC. You're not going to get an invite to the White House. Okay, bye. I'd like to keep my morals and my principles in line. If I never get to go to Mar-a-Lago again, at least I can lay my head in the pillow and know that I'm not cheering for children to die, irrespective of whether they're Palestinian or Israeli. I'm not going to root on children dying. And so I think also something that's important to remember, Dave, is these people do not believe in the free markets. That's the number one thing to remember. They want people to be artificially pushed out of the free markets so that they can say they're number one. They love a world where, like what happened back, what was it in 2020, when people were getting knocked off of platforms left and right. Maybe it was earlier than that, actually. It was before Trump was president. They love that world where you're artificially kicking out the Gateway pundit. You're not allowed to be on Facebook anymore. You're artificially kicking out Alex Jones. You're not allowed to have a platform. And then they go, we're number one. We are the number one most listened to conservative news podcaster. It's like, no, you're not. There's no market here.
It's exactly what they favor in terms of aid to Israel. Hey, we successfully lobby the United States government to give more foreign aid to Israel than any other country. We've won. Well, it wasn't because of the free market of ideas. That's not the way that people are drawn to support Israel. It's by twisting the arms of people of prominence and politicians and getting members of Congress on the AIPAC grain dole. That's what this is. So Candace is exactly right. I admire her courage. You know, she doesn't care about rubbing elbows with the elite to try to affect policy. She cares about telling the truth. And you might disagree with her on some things. I do too. But man, you can just see in her eye, it just comes off so genuine. That's what she cares about.
And that's what they want right now. They want their markets to be restricted so that they can be number one again.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's right. And because in a way, if they make, look, if the punishment, let's say like for whatever, like it was in the old guard where like, if you canceled someone, that was it. There wasn't like another, they couldn't just go start their own podcast or something. Like when Bill O'Reilly got fired from Fox News, I mean, I guess he did go start a podcast, but even back then it was like, it just wasn't as big of a market. And also his audience was a lot older. They weren't getting into like the technology. So he goes from being a guy who's speaking to like 5 million people a night to being a guy who's speaking to like 80,000 people when he does a show. And that's like, that sucks. And, you know, you could see where the pressure would be like, hey, look, are you sure you want to say this one thing that'll piss everybody off? Because then you lose the right to say all the other things that you also might think are important. And you make people make these calculations in their mind. But you going to number one, it's like, oh no, not only is there not a price to be paid, there's a reward in the market for people going like, oh yeah, she stood up for what was right. And
yeah, isn't that the most hope-inspiring thing, by the way? There's so many things to be cynical about in our current political situation, in our current culture, you know, all sorts of maladies that affect the American public. But that is a gleaming beam of light. It's a silver lining to me, but that's the case. That it was because of her courageous stand against Israel, despite the Daily Wire celebrating as if that was a good thing. Hey, we're not going to work with her anymore. But she becomes bigger than ever. Tucker Carlson fired from Fox News. He's become bigger than ever. This is where America is going. There's nothing stopping it. They can try to bring as much propaganda as they want. They're not going to stop this trend. And it's in a better direction. I think it's worth celebrating.
As you talk, like when you get down to the specifics of it, what you're talking about is like, I mean, I don't know, me and you've been reading the news for 2 years on this. You're talking about what? Children being shot at as they desperately try to get food because they've been starving for like I'm sorry, the American right wing is still made up of a lot of Christians and a lot of people who are just like, what? No, they're decent people. They're not going to go along with this. And the thing is, like, they kind of never got presented the opportunity to hear from people who were going to make that argument. And you've been a part of this huge, like, test study of like, well, how would it work if there was actually a market? And yes, I think it's incredibly rewarding for me to see you being the number one podcast, because it shows that, like, yeah, like, you demonstrated that people could have the courage to say the right thing, and then the audience demonstrated that, like, yeah, and there's a lot of people who will have your back if you do that.
Absolutely. It's so encouraging to see this, and it is a result of the new media. We're not playing by those same old games anymore. And despite the neocons and Zionist attempts to undermine these people, ruin them, likening them to Hitler, and Randy Fine saying that Tucker Carlson's the most dangerous anti-Semite in America, that's an exact quote, by the way, it's not working. And it's so uplifting to me that it's not working. It's become a meme. It's become so comical that the backlash against this is so much worse than the people that they persuade on the periphery and on the edges to go along with this stuff still. We're not going along with Israel first anymore.
I just think that's a great precedent to be set.
It is. And I'm so grateful, because I want to remind people, you might think of me now as anti-Israel, but when they came after my entire life, I just wanted to learn about the topic. I actually didn't have a perspective, but I knew that I didn't know everything. And they were just so vicious with, no, you have to come out and you have to say these things. And I was like, look, I don't know anything about this. Let me speak to other people. Like, I watched Bassem go viral, the clip go viral where he was holding up the chart. And I was going, whoa, that is kind of crazy. Like, are this many Gazans dying? Then I went back and I watched some old content of you on Joe Rogan speaking about the topic. Then I hosted you at the Daily Wire, and that was a big wake-up call. And I really was coming from a place, it's still one of my favorite episodes. I think they pulled all the content down, but just learning about Middle Eastern politics, I'm not presenting myself as an expert. And I think that is what also the market is responding to, is at least I want to learn. At least I am showing that I will correct where I was wrong. I was working for PragerU, Daily Wire. I was working with Zionists. I obviously had no hatred in my heart towards the Zionist cause.
Yeah, history bears that out. That's how that started. She literally tweeted that it's wrong to commit a genocide no matter who does it. That started this firestorm of animosity from the Daily Wire and from Ben Shapiro toward her. And it was her actually taking issue with Representative from Florida, Brian Mast, saying there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. That's his verbatim tweet. Him posting that got her to respond. And because she said this is genocidal language, this has no place if you actually, purport to be pro-life, that's what got the Zionist crosshairs on her. She wasn't even rigidly anti-Zionist at that point 2 years ago. But she's certainly headed in that direction, I think rightly so, along with vast swaths of the American public.
And then it was just asking the question. Like I was messaging with Max Blumenthal because, strange allies, right? And he has done some really incredible work. And I went back and I found these messages from a time where I simply retweeted Max Blumenthal on something that he said about Kyrie Irving that I agreed on. So it wasn't even about Israel. And I got messages, like all I can tell you is like Agent Smith. I sent it to him. It's crazy. Like Marissa Strait, Dave Rubin. And I actually apologized to them because I was like, wow, this guy must literally be Hitler. Like I didn't know. I just saw it trending and I retweet him.
Think about that and how heroic Max Blumenthal is. I know they've gotten closer together. Max Blumenthal has had good things to say about Candace and her turn away from the pro-Israel cause. And Max is one of the most heroic journalists of our time. We feature him a lot on this channel. He's brilliant. And guess what? He's a dissident leftist. I'm not. I'm a dissident right-wing libertarian. But we see so much common ground in some of these issues that you just can't deny the power of this new single-issue coalition that can unite dissidents on both sides. I think it's so empowering, and it's very telling how the Zionists react to this sort of thing. That's the last thing they want. They want this left versus right paradigm that they've always lived under and have been able to control in favor of the Israel lobby. Well, that's being shattered. There are new dynamics going on right now, and the Zionists aren't prepared to meet this moment.
That's what kind of goes on behind the scenes. Like they are actually presenting themselves as free speech thinkers. And then they put pressure on people and tell them, hey, even listening or retweeting Max Blumenthal, you may not know it. And they told me this. He's an anti-Semite. Like he's a committed anti-Semite.
He's Jewish. They'll go to, oh, he's a self-hating Jew, but they've done that to Dave Smith. He's Jewish. They've done that to Jeffrey Sachs. They've done that to Norman Finkelstein. They do that to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not. They'll call you anti-Semitic regardless. It's so tried. People see this now. It's going the way of the word racism when that was shouted down at anyone that took issue with one of your pet positions. It doesn't have the same power as it once did because of its misapplication and overapplication.
Max Blumenthal. It's a different time now, and that sort of, we're going to tell you what to think and you're going to like it, is not like, people aren't buying it anymore.
As I've been talking about lately, because I was a Ron Paul supporter back in the day, and I remember Ben Shapiro saying like that Ron Paul wants to strangle Jews and that he's a vicious anti-Semite, and I'd be like, whoa, like, and you realize you're like, oh, it was easy in those years for them to pretend like that wasn't actually all they cared about. But actually, that's all they care about. And I mean all they care about. And this has been revealed. This is the thing with the neocons. This is why even the original core neocon group, they were all a bunch of commies who then became Democrats, who then became Republicans, and then became Democrats again. And
this is true, by the way. If you don't want to take it from Dave, take it from Irving Kristol and James Burnham and William F. Buckley. All were once Trotskyites. They were self-described Trotskyites, and the only modification of their ideology was, instead of exporting, the proletariat revolution and the communist revolution across the world through permanent revolution, that's a concept that Trotsky talked about, we're going to do it for democracy. We're going to export democracy throughout the world instead of focusing inwardly. That was true.
Why they when they were George W. Bush Republicans, they were like, marriage is between a man and a woman, and our culture is getting out of, because they just thought that was the best way to get votes for their wars. And then when Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, they went, okay, she likes the wars, we'll go support Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Marriage,
that's exactly
gay marriage,
right.
Anyone who's against gay marriage is a homophobe or whatever. Like, but they don't actually. And so, look, just think about it, right? Why would someone like Ben Shapiro, at the very least, wouldn't he have liked a lot of things about Ron Paul? Oh, he's the most fiscal conservative guy. He's the strict constitutionalist. He's a devout Christian who, believes in traditional values. There's a million different things that you would go, oh, I like a lot of his thing. I do disagree with him on foreign policy. Nope. He's evil.
That's exactly right. This is such a good point, because the prioritization, the warped prioritization, in fact, of Ben Shapiro and the issues was so apparent even back then, where it's so clear that all he really cared about was Israel. He's willing to say that Ron Paul, of all people in this universe, fantasizes about strangling Jews. It's so absurd. It's so abhorrent and ridiculous and just comical. And Dave is absolutely correct. They just saw this as a pathway to acquire power, get into these wars for Israel, support them. That's why they were never Trumpers when Trump actually had good rhetoric against the wars. He turned out to be a charlatan on the wars, of course. But back then, they were fearful that, hey, Trump might actually turn out to be a non-interventionist. We're never Trump. We'd rather support Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy. That's exactly what Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and these people in his orbit were saying back then.
As soon as you're not on board with Israel and Israel's wars, you're even. And I think part of what happened here is that you, just by doing what you did, it demonstrated that not only, it's not like it went from like, Candace is great. She's been heroic on all these issues. We really disagree with her on this one. It went, all of that's gone. In one day, you go from being like our favorite person who we champion, who we put billboards up on, to you are the most vicious, evil human being in the world for saying, you know, I just had some babies and I'm seeing this mom holding her dead babies. And I'm thinking to myself like, oh my God, what would it be like to hold your dead baby? Geez, that's horrible. Like that's enough to make, and just people seeing that, like can't pretend they're not seeing what they're watching.
It's so true. That is how gentle it was. I had seen it was a dead Palestinian child, and she looked like my daughter. And I was going, well, this is crazy. Like, this is not just a black and white issue. I need to actually learn about this issue. And as soon as you express a feeling, I describe it very much. It is a psychological operation that is meant to break you.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's hard to take issue with anything that she said. And Dave is right. She could have changed her opinion on any other issue. Just imagine if she, instead of supporting like, you know, free market economics, suddenly became, you know, a pro-tariff protectionist. Do you think this would have had that effect where Ben Shapiro and all the Zionists in his orbit and the billionaire Zionist financier class, you know, suddenly came to the conclusion that Candace Owens is the biggest threat to humanity and she must be buried forever. We must sever all ties. Or imagine if it was something like her change in position on healthcare or something. They never would have done that because of how they prioritize issues. And it's a warped perversion of prioritization, if you're asking me. If you're building your movement on the slogan of the cornerstone principle, America first, it's just too hypocritical, man. And that is why Trump is losing a lot of his support. It's not just the Epstein cover-up. It's not just the tariff regime and, you know, other things related to that. It is this Israel issue. It is this warped priorities that we've seen manifest in this administration. And he's not alone in that. You know, his precursors certainly prioritized the interests of Israel, you know, before the United States too, obviously so. That's actually what led to so much support behind Trump, his stated objective of favoring U.S. domestic concerns over these foreign states. But people were duped by that, and he hasn't followed through. That's why he's losing so much support. So yeah, this is what is going on right now. The Zionists are losing their stranglehold on the American culture. They just are. It's so plain to see. We have no wool covering our eyes to not be able to see that now. It's become so plain. And the hit campaign against Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens is becoming clear. These people are so jealous that they have outpaced their appeal and outpaced their influence, so much so that they're trying to knock them down artificially because they can't knock them down in the free market of ideas, which I thought they were for. But it turns out they were just frauds and charlatans, simping and going to battle for this foreign regime, no matter how much it costs Americans and the American taxpayer. But what do you guys think? Do you think Candace Owens and Dave Smith are right about this? Are the Zionists losing their influence over the culture, if not the politics yet? That's what I think, at least. Let me know in the comments down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Dave Smith. Thanks, Dave. Great conversation here. If you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. Also, you can do that by clicking the join button down below. And if you do that, you can get all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to view all those members-only videos immediately. If you support me, really appreciate that if you go to that length. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It'll shoot you out to a site. You'll plug in your email. I'll send it to you completely free in PDF form, no obligation whatsoever. My gift to you. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.